we have now a great opportunity to have a panel with all keynote speakers from different countries, different companies with different backgrounds. We have great leaders from HR and also business. So great to see also Thomas with us. So let me introduce all panelists. Nienke Fenstra, General Manager at Takenda Pharma. Graciela Modica, HR Director, Eastern Europe at H&M. Phil Krzyżek, General Manager Biopharma, Managing Director at Merck Poland. Navid Nazemian, Global Head of HR at Vodafone UK. And Thomas Lübeck, Global HR Process Innovation Director at Lego Denmark. So great to have you all here with us. And I have a very important question that I would like to ask you regarding the future of HR role and the future of our, let's say, world, which is very dynamic, and we know that we are living a fundamental transformation of the way we work. That's why my first question will go to Nienke, Graciela. And I would like to ask you about the role of HR in our dynamic times. Please name it in one word and shortly explain. So Nienke, the question to you.
It's a new culture accelerator. We have to work in different ways that will ask for an adaptation of our culture, and the sooner we get there, the more effective organizations and teams will be. And as we know, a lot of the work that was classically done by HR is now done by people leaders. So the better they are equipped in a culture that fits all that, the quicker we will reach the results that we all passionately work for every day.
Thank you. And Graciela, what's your view?
I have a similar view, I have to say. Glad to hear also. So if I need to name with the one sentence, for me, the role of the HR for the future, but also for the current, let's say, period, it's absolutely catalyst for change, as I said before. I agree, we need different culture. To be expert leader is not good enough, not anymore. To be simply goal-oriented, the target achiever is not good enough, not anymore. HR need to help people developing another skill set, enabling other leaders to, first of all, understand, recognize, accept, and lead the change, and also live out of comfort zone, as we learned before. How? For me, it's super clear. So enabling creativity, taking time for this to happen, developing problem-solving skills on a very high level, also trying to create infrastructure and way to develop a co-creation and cross-functional work and teamwork, because yes, I agree, it's a great challenge, but it's the key also to lead the change. And also pulling much more than pushing people, coaching much more than telling, and and most of all, at the end, develop self-confidence in leaders. This is how I see the role of the HR in turbulent times, but also for the future.
Thank you very much. Great answers, great inspirations. My next question is to Phil, Navid, and Thomas, and this is about HR transformation. We've learned a lot today about HR transformation journey. We experience it on the daily basis. So what is the key challenge from your perspective? Please name it and advise on how to tackle it. So Phil, what do you think?
Wow, there's so much you could say about it. But I think, for me, actually a lot of what Nienke was saying at an individual level, I think we need to almost clone and bring across whole organizations, because, if you accept that the role of command and control and even the introduction of technology and AI, if you accept that that's not the total answer, and actually what we need to do is really foster the creativity of people, especially in situations where you've got disruption like COVID or introduction of new technology. Nobody's got the answer, okay? I mean, people talk to me about AI, and if I'm honest, I haven't got the first idea of how it's going to impact, when it's going to come, And I think the whole organization needs to be ready and attuned for it. And all of these things require cultural change, right? So I'm going to sort of repeat what people are saying. And I think, you know, cultural change really is the answer. We've got to create an environment where leaders are more comfortable with a different type of role. But also, you know, let's not assume that employees are ready to take on this new challenge. It's quite scary. You know, it's, you know, I think some people quite like to be told what to do, and that's not what we need anymore. And we need to help people with that. So for me, the role of HR really is about driving culture forward, but challenging leaders and employees. And I think one thing that Navid said earlier that I think really resonated with me was, you know, have the difficult, challenging conversations. You know, I think that's really important for HR to take on that role, because they have that neutral role where they can challenge leadership and employees. And for me, I think that's really important.
Thank you. Navid, what's your opinion?
Yes. So next to what I've shared this morning, I think for me, when I look at this as a challenge, I also see the opportunity. So if we had an idea to transform our organization from this to that, I think if anything, the current situation could actually be a catalyst to make that to be accelerated. If we thought we would need 5 stakeholder, you know, meetings and 6 months to prepare this deck that goes in and hopefully gets approved with the budget and everything else, maybe we can do it in 2 weeks and don't have to wait for 6 months to get that across. You know, the other opportunity I see with that is, you know, with this kind of current setup, I think we all have greater access to diverse and talent skills all around the world, sometimes outside of our own country where we are operating. So how do we make sure we tap into those untapped talent pools? How do we make sure that we use the engagement we have with our employees in a meaningful way? I mean, one of the things I talked about earlier this morning was to look at culture as a business driver, and Nick was referring to this, and Graciela as well. So how do we, you know, make sure that we deepen and allow for increased flexibility, and at the same time, you know, we build and capitalize on all of this? So for me, whilst that may all look very challenging and hard to do, they also provide a real opportunity to transform and, you know, look at it as levers and leverage rather than a challenge that may or may not be able to be solved.
Yeah, it sounds very optimistic. Thank you. And Thomas, what's your view on the greatest challenge to HR transformation?
It is really to ensure that if we are making a transformation, we are answering a call to change something. We're answering a need or a desire to do something. HR transformation can, of course, come from within HR, but it is much more likely to succeed if it comes in a dialogue and a response to what is happening in the business and in collaboration with the business. So for me, you can say the biggest challenge for transformations in HR is really to stay in tune with the business. Because in some countries, in some situations, in some organizations, we may need to be more of a centralized model, or we need to give employees and managers much more freedom to exercise, you can say, judgment on the spot. In others, it needs to be much more stringent and disciplined how we approach HR and how we work with it. So for me, the biggest challenge is really us as HR leaders. How do we stay in tune with what the business is in? What kind of situation is it that we're trying to solve? What is the call for action that we are hearing? So it is really about us staying with open ears and sometimes keeping our mouths a little bit shut and listening more sometimes than we speak. And of course, we also need to provoke the business and come up with new ideas, but we need to answer a call for action, I think, because otherwise we will just be making something that people will say, oh, this is just HR. And then we will be invited to the table too often again.
You know, I actually would like HR to be more provocative and more vocal. So, you know, I think it depends on your situation, but I think you have the right to, and as a partner, you should.
If I just, of course, I'm fully aware. I mean, if you go back, I mean, all the famous quotes about when Ford started off his motor business, right? I mean, what kind of color would you like? I mean, I'd like a black, or I don't know, I need another horse, right?
Yeah.
Because they didn't know the concept of a car. So of course, HR needs to introduce ideas, but we need to be. It really needs, in my opinion, to be a very close-knit connection with the business. Unfortunately, I've seen too many, you can say, HR initiatives that failed because there was not a demand for it, or there was not a need for it.
I understand, yeah.
And sometimes, I mean, I've been in big organizations where, I mean, every second or third year we reinvent how we approach succession planning or how we do annual surveys, and we don't really get or allow leaders to grasp what we are changing before we start changing it again. And I think it's a little bit, we need to go with the pace, but we also need to take it slow. It's a fine balance, I think.
And one of the challenges that I see, and I asked this question to you, Thomas, in the morning. Maybe it's a good time to answer it. How HR can set up right priorities, and how to decide what should be postponed or stopped because of, let's say, different things that we should to tackle with.
Yeah. So for our specific case in Lego, you can say the initiatives very much comes from both the dialogue that we have with the different business areas, so with supply chain, with our R&D, and with our digital and so forth. So they drive, you can say, a long list of ideas that they would like us to work on. And then we have a direction that is attuned to Lego's long-term strategy. We have an HR strategy. What is it that we want to move? And then it is really about having the discussion with the business on where it is. And then I think as I touched upon, it is for us a challenge to move away from we want everything to be perfect and move to more this minimum viable product approach. But in the end, it is through discussion. It is through sometimes I wouldn't say behind the back of a piece of paper to just do what's the pros, what's the cons, and what's the cost of doing it. And that sort of helps us in the right direction. I cannot unfortunately give you a magic formula to how you prioritize. It is really the mix between what the business would like and where we see the direction and what's happening out there in the world around us. I mean, with COVID, how we respond to COVID, flexible workplace, how we take care of our employees in general and so forth. And I think there's right now just so many things going on. I mean, with Gary Hamel on humanocracy, Unilever is really taking some huge steps forward also. So there's so many interesting trends that goes on right now. And for us right now, it's just about absorbing a little bit of it and trying to find out what is that we can adapt and what we can do in Lego on all of these trends.
So maybe I'll also ask this question to Nienke and Phil, from your perspective as business leaders, what is your advice to HR, how to set up right priorities? Because sometimes we want to do everything at the same time, really to be everywhere and to support all, let's say, both leaders, employees, how to do it in the best way.
I think what I've also heard, HR leaders need to truly understand the business they're active in and to truly understand where does the end value for the patient and the customer gets created. We're not there yet. I've been in HR myself, and I've seen a lot of differences there. And I've even seen a huge difference from when I started working 20 years ago, what the role of HR was and where it is today. And I think today you cannot be a high-performing HR professional without truly being able to explain in an elevator pitch where the value is being created. And ruthlessly prioritize based on that, and not to do it yourself, but to allow the people that have the biggest influence on that value creation to be optimally performant. And that's sometimes culture work, but not always. And it is, I think that's where I would really start. And you can't do everything. what I also see a lot of HR professionals doing, wanting to do everything. There are still a lot of people in the HR world that want to support and help everyone. That's not your role. You don't need to support and help everyone. You're more of a challenger than you are a supporter if you truly want to drive an organization forward. When it comes to support on an individual level, that's a line manager role. It's not an HR role anymore. It shouldn't be HR that has all those challenging conversations. In my opinion, that is a line manager that should have it. It has a different level of impact for the employee. So that's a little bit in a nutshell how I will look at it, having both worked in HR and having worked in the business. I would appreciate HR leaders to fully understand where that value is created, prioritize accordingly, and dare to say no to all the things, which I think is as big a challenge for most HR professionals as it is to really understand where the value is being created.
Thank you. And Phil, what's your opinion?
Yeah,
what's your advice?
I think I think it's even more complex actually in a global organization. Okay, so like Nenke's organization, we have a lot of global HR initiatives. And often I find actually it's not so, in terms of prioritization globally, these programs may make sense, but at a country level, what I would like more of is actually a bit of negotiation and dialogue around, what do you implement first? So you could argue that all of these programs are good, but I think it's really about HR negotiating with local management around where do we start, what do we prioritize. And to do that in partnership, that's really important. I think also, let's not forget, I know Navid talked a lot about the administration part of HR, and I think that's not going away any day soon. So I think there's almost like a split role really, is how can we get even better at utilizing technology to make that, to actually reduce that as a percentage of time. I know it hasn't happened in the past, but maybe that doesn't mean we should give up on that, to allow you more time to partner on the business.
Thank you. Now I would like to ask
Can I
you
also
about
add my comment, Tina, on this?
Yes, please, Graciela, of course.
Thank you. Because I'm an HR, but I totally agree that our role is really to be business partners, and when we need to set priorities, we don't set from an HR perspective simply. So for me, business is defining my priority as HR director. So business from one side, of course, employees' demands, employees' needs, I need to filter it and I need to put in the agenda as well. And also external pressure, what is coming from society, this I need to also be updated and integrate in my way of leading. But when I say that I'm a business partner, I truly believe in the fact that the HR has to develop capabilities, not to solve every single issue. The HR has to empower leaders and managers to take a difficult conversation, to solve issues. This is our role, because if it's not that, then it's impossible to lead a complex organization, complex world, and complex level of issues, problems with people. And I cannot get frustrated. But I understand it's a challenge for HRs as well, because this is a shift in the mindset in the organization, and we need to educate about this new role.
Yes. Thank you. And I think that you have full, position to share your experience having 16 countries in your scope. Yes. So, and 24 hours a day to live your life. Thank you. So my next question is about the hybrid model, because we are all expecting that it will be our norm. So how to make it sustainable? This is the question to Thomas. What do you think?
How to make a hybrid model sustainable? Again, I don't think there isn't a one solution fits all. I think we at LEGO are contemplating a new policy and new direction setting on how we want to move ahead on allowing work from home and go into the office. We have opened up some really fancy new offices and are investing heavily in office space with the purpose of creating, you can say, social meeting place, you can say areas where you can work together and so forth. And we really need that, because quite a large part of our DNA in terms of developing our products, the creative process around that really requires that people get together physically to exchange ideas and to bounce off thoughts and so forth. So there will be a mix of allowing people to work from home, and some people will go to the office. But when they go to the office, it will be for different issues or for different topics that they want to solve. They may need to have time off from home if everybody else is working from home, where they can just focus. It used to be the other way around. You go home to really focus, but now you go to the office to focus because you don't have your kids, you don't have your wife or your partner at home. So we will create a model that suits that. We also know that we do have different employee groups. So we have all the people working in our production. They need to go to the work. So how can we sustain and make it safe for them to return to work and sustain that with health and safety? The same goes for our retail business. They also need to be in the stores to help customers. So it is really going to be a different hybrid model, but no doubt it will lead to us re-evaluating our office layouts, our office locations, and so forth. Just the other day, I had a chat with a colleague from Germany in another company, a multinational German company, and he said they were going to save hundreds of millions of euros by consolidating office spaces and so forth, and changing, you can say, the purpose of the office space into a meeting area, into collaborative spaces and so forth, instead of offices. And so there's, I don't have the answer. I think we need to be agile and learn and introduce some of the new things and see how it works out and reevaluate continuously. I don't think we will have a fixed solution. I also think it comes down to country culture. In some countries, managers are more accustomed to having face time with employees and might have a little bit difficulty loosening up on having this face time. And they're also the ones who today encourage people to go into the office and so forth. But
thank you very much. Yes. And Phil, what is the approach to a hybrid model at Merck?
Yeah, I think, well, like a lot of organizations, we were luckily already on a journey of digitalization and more flexible working anyway. I think what COVID did was just accelerated that. And it shows, actually, coming back to Nenke's point about being outside your comfort zone, maybe we don't push hard enough sometimes, because we seem to have achieved a lot more adoption of some of the practices that we wanted to bring into place anyway. So we'd already started on a journey of making our offices more about collaboration, rather than a place to work. I think though, that what we do need to do is look at all policies really and design them in a way that supports hybrid working, because there's still some conflicts of there's pieces of the business that still haven't almost realized that there's a different mode of working, and we need to support that in a different way. So I think it needs to be more like the organization needs to make a wholesale decision that it is going to support hybrid working, and everything should be done to support that. So I think that's important. I think the other thing around hybrid working is, I'm sure, like many other of the companies here, people want to get back to normal, okay? And what I would say is I really don't want to do that, because there's been some really good things that have come out of this. Some meetings and some modes of working actually are more productive online, okay? So let's not forget that, and let's think about where it makes sense to work remotely and where it doesn't. And I just think, we just need to use the technology sensibly and align it to what we're trying to achieve.
David, what's your view on the hybrid working model as a sustainable practice?
Yes. So I think what Thomas, Phil, Nienke, and Graciela have shared is already quite comprehensive. And similar to Graciela, I look after 19 countries in the head office. And I think sometimes the mistake we make in HR, as someone who's also worked in sales for 6 years before coming to HR, is to assume that we know. So just, of course, we know, who knows the organization better than us. And this time around, we didn't fall into that trap. So what we did was to actually do what I call a large clinical trial within our own organization. So we asked thousands and thousands of our people at all different, country operation levels, different functions, different generations. Bear in mind, different generations may have different preferences. What they think is the right solution and what would they prefer to be doing and how they imagine the future of work to be like. And I think that was a very wise decision. It was a lot of the work, but boy, it was more than worth it, because right now we are actually in the final stage of publicizing that policy. 1st of April is the date where we will go live with remote hiring, remote working, and all of that. And similar to what Phil said, we feel we are a little ahead of the curve as an organization. Back in 2012, we said up to 50% of our people's time can be performed from anywhere, anytime. So we were kind of, it was quite revolutionary 9 years ago to make those statements. And yet we never actually experienced a more permanent way of working from home at such a large scale. 100,000 people working from home, 95% of our people are working from home permanently for a year now, across the 19 countries. So for us, what we found were connection. So this is town halls, team events, relationship building, mentoring, training. 10 to 15% was said to be performed in that way when we get into an office environment. Co-creation and innovation. So 5 to 15% said they would like to do things like brainstorming sessions, co-creation session, team planning, design thinking, and so on to be performed in a together mode in an office. Team execution, doing retrospectives, debriefs, problem solving, innovation, those kind of things. So if I add all these 3 buckets up, it amounts to something between 20 to 40%. And that's our way going forward. So we assume that our people are likely to spend, 20 to 40% of their total time in the office. And then the other 60% is spent working either from home or in a location that is not the office location. It could be a co-working space, it could be the Starbucks next door, or whatever you deem to be the appropriate setup for you personally, and we don't want to prescribe that. So I think that for us is having the right mix. Now, 40-60 or 60-40 doesn't mean that every given week I spend 3 days at home and 2 days in the office. It may be that I spend an entire week in the office because I'm doing an all hands, there's a big town hall, there's a strategy review meeting, there's an innovation board, and this and that and the other. But there could be then 3 weeks following that where I don't have to come to the office environment. So for us, the flexibility within those percentages is key. And the most important thing is it's rooted in our own research and findings. So it's not something we bought off some consulting company. We did the ground research, and now we know what our people want.
Yes, thank you very much for your point of view. And I see also that Thomas shared some comments. So would you like to add them to our discussion, Thomas?
I think there's been a lot of discussion about working virtually, whether that opens up to a larger talent marketplace that is away from where you have your office locations. And I think my personal view is definitely it opens up for gaining access to, let's say, special resources that are not movable, who don't want to relocate to one of our office locations, or that we can allow for working completely remotely and then maybe from time to time traveling. And I think that is going to be really interesting to see how that opens up access to new talents and so forth, and how we will integrate that with the company culture. And then there was a question on do we then start to differentiate? So if we get people from low pay countries, will they be paid the same as if they were working remotely from Denmark or from somewhere else? And I think we would still be looking at paying competitively irrespective of if you're working remotely or if you're working from the office. I mean, I don't think we will start any differentiation on pay for that topic.
Thank you very much for this great summary of different challenges, but also opportunities that we can have thanks to the hybrid working model. And I would like also to ask about the greatest challenges to our employees in this new reality and in 2021. And this is the question to Graciela and Jenke. So Graciela, what's your view? What is the greatest challenge to your employees at H&M?
Yeah, so for me, overall, the challenge that employees are facing at the moment is to really find a balance between the personal life and with whatever this implies, and also their great ambition to have a role within the company, a role making an impact, influencing, which is meaningful, and so on and so on. And this kind of balance is not there yet, in my opinion. But on the other side, is a great opportunity for leaders to evolve and to also help them to understand how to find this balance. And what is here the secret? In my opinion, we should be supported by very young people, by a new generation of people helping us to understand how to help them, basically, and how to develop them.
And Jenke, what is the greatest challenge to your employees?
What we saw because we also did some global surveys on this situation, also, first of all, on what is the current situation, also what the challenge is really mental well-being. People find it very difficult to make distinctions between work and their private life in their same home, especially those having children, those working in smaller houses that can't create a specific place for working. And the fact that the work is sort of staring you in the face all day long, and everyone feels sort of this little voice of guilt in the back of their mind when they're not doing something, is blocking them. Started also messaging. I hear a lot, as we also heard today, the quote work-life balance. And I read an article the other day that really talked just about life. Work should be integrated almost more in life, because if you have a balance, if there's more work, there would be less life. And that's what we risk seeing now. And it should be aligned in a way that fits each individual. And for each individual, that is different. Some are morning persons, some are evening persons, some need to work out in the middle of the day, as I shared, which I do, for example. One of the big silver linings of this is that we can accommodate more to what gives a person energy by having this opportunity. And I think we should role model and message that it's okay, no matter how you are, to plan it as such. And I encourage people as well to share that with their colleagues so that they can actually support their colleague in finding the right way to integrate work into their life, and through that address their mental well-being. Because we've really seen that addressing that mental well-being, when you feel so strongly powered by purpose, a healthcare crisis in pharma industry might bring that out even stronger than in some other industries. But I hear from my team, the continuity of supply, for example, we need to set those limits, because only by being strategically selfish, we can continue to perform, but also to love, to live, to be there with all our loved ones. And otherwise, it won't be sustainable.
Yes, that's true. So even if we accept that there's no one size fits all the policy or solution, we can see a lot of similarities in our challenges. That's why it's great that we have this discussion together, and with all participants, we can share your experience, your insights, because it will be very helpful for our, let's say, field of thoughts and actions in the coming weeks and months. So thank you for that. And also I have the question to all of you, thinking about the future of HR. In the context of all our challenges, what's your best advice to our HR community? How to be successful in 2021? So maybe first, Navid, what's your advice?
Thank you, Tina, and I will bore everyone with repeating one of the kind of key insights I gave away this morning by saying, really look at optimizing the entire organization, not the HR function or this process that happens to be a people process. I mean, it sounds very simple, but boy, it's hard to do. because that requires HR people to step out of their comfort zone, to understand the value drivers of a business in order to be able to optimize the entirety of it, and not just my little silo down here, or my little admin function, or my little learning and development kind of interventions. So making the whole enterprise greater than the sum of its parts does require us to spot really where the different elements are meshing well and building on one another, and where there are gaps and, you know, seams, and how we can help to fix those. For me, that will be the key priority, particularly because a lot of the business models are disrupted as we speak. So what used to be, you know, a 3-year long-range planning process may now be, you know, how do we survive the next quarter, and how do we make sure the revenues are secured for the next month, the next week, the next day. So really look at the entire enterprise and try to optimize that instead of focusing on the function or the process.
Thank you very much. Phil, what's your view?
Well, I think leadership by example has never been more important. I've always aimed, and increasingly at the moment, want to aim for that sweet spot of delivering high challenge but high support at the same time. And I think that's really important. People do need to be challenged. They need to be challenged to grasp the opportunities that there are, but they need to know that they'll be, you know, we'll catch them when they fall. Okay, so you know, I think that's really important. I think from a HR perspective, now is the time to have lots of dialogue and to talk, because we're in a period of flux. There's a lot of change, and I think none of us know everything that's going on, and we need to talk, and we need to have that dialogue to find new opportunities. And I think, you know, it is a time to take some risks and try things a bit differently, and learn. You know, take the opportunity. You know, I think the expression is never waste a good crisis. So, you know, let's make sure we take the opportunity out of it.
Thank you, Phil. Graciela, what's your opinion? What's your advice?
Thank you for this beautiful question, first of all. My view, there are two things that HR should do better in order to be successful. So from one side, they really have an acting role when it comes to creating or co-creating, but keeping constantly alive a culture of trust, psychological safety, collaborative learning, together with the general managers and also the functionaries, yes? This from one side. And it's a lot about an ethical commitment, in my opinion, and a mission that you need to feel, because of course you are not alone, but you should be the one driving it from a cultural perspective. And on the other side, in my opinion, what is super important for HR to improve, maybe, yes, or also is what I'm learning today, is to treat everyone as a leader. Can you imagine the power of having, instead of 12,000 employees, 12,000 leaders? So what does it mean? And what does it mean in concrete? It means not to develop accountability anymore, because in my opinion, people are accountable, feel accountable, are measured by clear KPIs and metrics and so on and so on. But really empower people, encourage them to take the ownership and drive their own business and drive their own team. This, in my opinion, we have to do much better moving forward.
Thank you very much, Nienke. What's your advice to us?
Repeating a lot what has been said, but so already. And building on what I said before, you need to truly understand as HR indeed where value is created, and not then just today, but also in what we think will be the new hybrid mode of learning. How will that value be created? Because what type of value will be created will for some companies not change that drastically, but how we will do that in a given situation might. And having a thorough understanding of that and building and driving the culture that is required for that. And indeed, a lot of the execution of those things have to be done by the people leaders in the organization, but that is part of that culture change. And I think we need to be ruthless in that. And that will also ask for a completely different type of HR onboarding, maybe even shadowing, for example, for a first month, all the roles where the end value is being created, rather than just focusing on what is your workday system look like. You know, I couldn't care less. And that's not to be provocative, but that's not what it's about. Really go shadow all the different roles. Do that for a month, do that for 2 months. If we truly think that's important, Plan it as such, and do that before you get caught up in all the processes, because once you're caught up, it's like a hungry animal that gobbles you all up. No, do all those things before. Ask them to analyze from their perspective, where is the value truly created? And what are the HR levers you have that we would like to leverage optimally for that? I think, with the words of Phil, never waste a good crisis. Let's see if you can redefine it as such, but it also starts by the people leading the organizations overall to whom HR report into, and how they will be challenged and how they will be developed. Because I also think, to link to my talk, a lot of HR people will be out of comfort zone as well. The requirements for the role will change drastically. That will have its repercussions. And think for themselves, am I being comfortable in this or not? And they will need to do a lot of hefty role modeling as well and be open about that. And I think sharing that might actually be great for the organization as well and strengthen the culture even further.
Thank you very much. Thomas.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd like to build on what Nienke said here. I think the ambition, and then maybe a little bit provocative, how can we make HR redundant? Basically about, you can say, how can we embed procedures, create co-ownership? I mean, HR is nothing without the rest of the business. And if you can come to a place where leaders and employees, they don't think about, oh, now I need to call HR, or HR needs to help me with this. If they either they just do it, or they call the right person, but they don't think of it as HR, then I think we have come to an ideal place where everybody has a shared responsibility and accountability for actually doing things. And then I don't care whether it's a Workday, SuccessFactors, what system, what process. If I treat it as, okay, this is just part of how I do business. This is not something special because it's HR related or people related or culture related. It's just something that I do because this is ingrained in how we do business in my company and so forth. Then I think we really need to step out of our comfort zone to get to that place. But I think that is where we can truly add the value. That is, if everybody sees it as a joint responsibility to carry out these HR tasks.
Thank you very, very much. So now we have a great piece of advice about how to be successful in 2021 as HR, as also our let's say community participating in this conference, but also as an HR function transferring to the new roles and new environment. So being out of comfort zone, creating new value, also leading by example, having active role in all of the, let's say, agile changes in our environment. This is all about it. So thank you a lot. I would like to thank you, all great panelists, for your openness, for your insights, for very, let's say, dynamic discussion that we had today. And because our time is up, that's why I would like to also thank all of the participants for this part of the conference. And I'm just transferring our discussion to the next part of the conference, to the studio. Thank you a lot. Thank you for your time, and thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.